In this chapter, an old wizard with a mane of white hair appeared before Alex, curiosity blazing in his eyes after hearing of Alex's astonishing magical inventions. With a voice like distant thunder, he asked if Alex would spare a moment to talk. Alex, already aware of the reason for this visit, agreed without hesitation. The instant he consented, a blazing phoenix erupted into existence. And reality twisted, Alex felt a strange dizziness before finding himself in a chamber where portraits of countless predecessors watched in solemn silence. Arrayed around him were watchful professors and one figure whose presence defied all expectation. The hero once known as Harry was now Harriet, offering a hesitant smile as if to disguise a storm of confusion. And beside her, the normally dour professor revealed a rare, unsettlingly radiant grin. It struck Alex like a lightning bolt. Snape had not only gathered the ingredients for a powerful ancestral potion in record time, but had already persuaded Harriet to drink it, transforming identity itself in a single day. Rifying calm, Alex lifted his unremarkable wand into the chaos. As Alex stepped into the chamber with Dumbledore, the room fell into a stunned silence, eyes locking onto him like he was the myth reborn from ancient ink and forgotten spells. Dumbledore, voice steady yet tinged with awe, acknowledged whispers of Alex's uncanny creations, the enchantment spell, the enhanced transfiguration spell, and the elusive ancestral potion. With no hesitation, Alex claimed ownership, his tone unshaken. Over the summer, he had immersed himself in arcane texts, and out of that quiet storm, his inventions emerged not from inspiration, but necessity. Dumbledore, caught between duty and wonder, asked for proof, for purpose. But Alex soon bothered, half amused, confessed he simply shaped what the world was missing. Not to impress, not to rebel, but because the magic itself demanded it. When I first brushed against the edge of true magic, I couldn't help recalling the bizarre little creatures from old fantasy tales. Those wobbly slimes that made sorcery feel almost comical. That curiosity pulled me headlong into the study of transfiguration. And once I had cracked its foundations, I twisted the spell into something singular in incantation that could breathe life into objects or beings, reshaping them into wondrous magical creatures. Later, when I uncovered that a wizard's strength pulsed through the veins of lineage itself, I dove into potion making, crafting the prototype of the ancestral potion with nothing but my own blood as the mold. Naturally, my body welcomed it without protest, but for anyone else, it could only awaken the mother's bloodline, and with it came the peculiar twist of making their features echo their mother's face. As the semester crept closer, I noticed how the everyday enchantments in wizard homes, despite their cleverness, demanded a constant thread of attention. Whether it was brooms dancing across the floor or silverware clattering through recipes, their magic flickering out before the chores were truly done. So I shaped the enchantment spell, a weave of power that birthed self-willed magical furniture, faithful and tireless. At last, I stood before the professors and let the enchantment spell flare to life. No illusions, no borrowed brilliance. In that moment, they all saw it was mine alone. One professor was the first to break the hush, his eyes alight. He declared me a wizard whose spark outshone every legend he knew. Another turned to the glistening blue slime that had once been a book, and with a solemn nod, agreed that these creations were worthy of the highest honor magic could bestow. Any one of these innovations would be considered groundbreaking. Exactly, the professor exclaimed, practically vibrating with awe. The enchantment spell alone could change everything. We're talking sentient brooms syncing with your every thought. Can you imagine that kind of ride? And just when the room couldn't get more electric, the headmaster dropped the bomb. I'm nominating Alex for the First Class Order of Merlin. Silence. Then gasps. Another professor jumped in wide-eyed. Wait, if we're all backing him, he might be the youngest ever to receive it. But the headmaster just smiled, then shook his head slowly. Compared to Alex's creations, even the Order of Merlin feels like a footnote. The room fell into stunned silence again, their heads nodding in quiet agreement. Meanwhile, a young student nearby stared, jaw dropped, completely short-circuited. We're in the same year, and he's out here rewriting the rules of magic? I haven't even nailed one spell and he's already legend tier? Harriet's eyes widened in shock as she locked onto elixrializing the ancestral potion. The one that rewrote her very essence had sprung from his own hands. Give me back my manhood! She demanded, rage and disbelief mixing like volatile alchemy. But Alex, walking away from the headmaster's office, let a sly grin break across his face, another twist in the story, another ripple across the tapestry of reality. The plot had shifted, and with it, Alex's grip on the world tightened. He could now feel his true self beyond the veil, feeding him power from unseen dimensions. While his avatar bent the laws of magic inside that famous universe, the real Alex labored in silence building bridges between fractured realms, threading memory and myth into a living web of story flow. His power surged again. Mystic eyes of death perception leveled up. Lines of mortality glowed like spiderwebs over creation, and to cut them was to erase fate itself. And deeper still, another spark ignited. Root skill leveled up! His very essence evolving, no longer bound by linear causality. Alex was no longer just a player in someone else's story. He was becoming the myth behind the ink, the echo that never fades, the spiral that memory could not close. Alex's evolution had reached a staggering climax, no longer just a traveler of worlds. He was now their rewriter. With Root LV4 unlocked, he could twist causality like threads of silk, altering the fundamental truths of existence with a thought. Death itself bent before him through the mystic eyes, letting him erase not people, but the very idea of them. Then came the game rules skill reality pixelated under his will, reshaped by the laws of Minecraft. One punch, and the ground shattered into cubes. One breath, and a new interface awakened within him. He was no longer bound by narrative. He imposed his own rewriting worlds with a cosmic pickaxe, a god in gamer's skin. He could now play Minecraft in the real world, and not just any world, but one where magic once ruled supreme. His eyes sparked with realization. Minecraft's rules didn't just work here, they overwrote the very laws of magic. With a grin, he tapped into the Steve template, unleashing a new kind of power that turned the wizarding realm on its head. Alex trained, pushed, and leveled up until game rules hit level 3, bending a 100-kilometer radius to his will. Meanwhile, the wizarding world reeled from the shockwave. Spells that echoed souls, potions that resurrected bloodlines, transformations never seen before. They weren't the legacy of some ancient sage, they came from a first-year student. At first, they laughed. Then they doubted. But as Dumbledore and the Merlin Knights backed the claim, the world had no choice but to accept it. A new myth was rising, one that could outshine Dumbledore and even challenge Merlin himself. His name? Alex. Even more shocking was that this prodigy came from the world without magic. While Alex's name roared across every corner of the wizarding world, the boy himself rumored to eclipse even legends remained cool and focused, quietly mastering his craft. Then came the flying lesson that bent reality. With his game rules now at level 3, Alex warped the very laws of the world within a 10-meter radius. Suddenly, the air shimmered with hidden code, and the earth became a grid of blocks ready to be reshaped. Hermione saw it first. Alex, wooden pickaxe in hand, struck the ground and it cracked like glass. "Is that a new spell?" she asked. "Yep," he smirked, placing a dirt block. "Only I can use it for now. But Hereditary this." He handed her the pickaxe. One swing later, a weightless cube of dirt hovered in her palm. She placed it down. A perfect cube clicked into place. The laws of physics? Optional. Together, they built a floating dirt house, pixel by pixel, block by block, rewriting magic with a gamer's logic. The world, it seemed, was no longer bound by wands and words, but by imagination. In a flash, a modest hut rose from the ground, sturdy, simple, alive with arcane spark. Curious eyes gathered as classmates circled in amazement, drawn by the hum of magic in motion. With a confident grin, Alex handed out enchanted wooden tools, each glowing with hidden power, and the crowd became a crew. The structure swelled, surging skyward into a monolithic fortress of packed earth, absurd and magnificent. Professors arrived, brows furrowed until the air cracked with presence. Dumbledore peered, breath caught, eyes wide. Merlin's beard. What sorcery is this? Alex, calm as ever, spoke the name, "My world." The old wizard fell into silence, the kind that echoes through time. He saw it then, not a spell, but a new law of magic. A creation that could twist the roots of transfiguration itself. One boy, one idea, one world, reshaped. This spell can reshape reality itself into any form your imagination dares to conjure, so I called it my world. My world? Dumbledore echoed, his eyes narrowing with intrigue before he fired off the question that would decide everything. How hard is it to master, and can it spread beyond you? That answer would seal its fate, either a revolution to surpass transfiguration or a rare curiosity locked behind impossible complexity. If any wizard could learn it with ease, my world would ignite an era of transformation without limits. But if the craft demanded mastery most could never claim, it would languish like an artifact of forgotten ages, powerful but forever out of reach. Alex rubbed his chin, weighing whether chaos magic might echo the spell's potential. After a moment, he realized the answer was yes. Chaos magic was fluid by nature. With refined gestures and disciplined mana, a simpler mirror of my world could be born. That, however, was the ceiling. To craft something stronger, he'd have to reach into the world's hidden law sand. He wasn't ready to bend those yet. But time was on his side. When the last Horcrux fell, he believed he'd finally seize the power to sculpt reality's code itself. So he lifted his gaze and declared, "Right now, only I can wield this spell. It's unfinished, raw, but one day it will stand ready for every wizard willing to claim it." Dumbledore watched him in measured silence, as if peering straight into the uncharted promise of magic unbound. In the flickering shadows of floating pumpkin lanterns and roaring thunder beyond the Great Hall, Alex stood distant, untouched by the world's noisy admiration. Weeks earlier, he had completed the My World spell simple in function, yet tectonic in consequence. Extract and place blocks, that was all. But through these two modest actions, the wizarding realm reshaped itself, quite literally. Structures broke the laws of physics. Magic merged with imagination. One humble wizard, once overlooked, now soared as an architectural legend, transforming family fortunes with pixelated grandeur. Yet while others reveled, Alex withdrew, unmoved by gold, glory, or grandeur. Balls were declined, titles ignored. He had no desire to bask in praise. This world, it was merely the canvas for something greater. For Alex had a vision far beyond mortal understanding. To ascend not as a hero, not as a ruler, but as a god of dimensions, where reality bent to his will and magic was just the beginning. The spell? A gift to his future subjects, given not out of kindness, but indifferent. The feast raged on. Ghosts danced in candlelight. But Alex was already drifting beyond the bounds of fame, preparing to claim the infinite. It was a rare night of magic and mischief at Hogwarts. The Great Hall alive with glowing jack-o'-lanterns and floating candles, as laughter echoed off the stone walls. Students from every house indulged in an endless feast golden platters stacked high with cheese wheels, crystal bowls brimming with fruits, goblets overflowing with fresh squeezed juices refilled in a blink by invisible house elves. But while others devoured desserts with wild abandon, Alex, cool as ever at the Ravenclaw table, tapped out early and slipped into a book. That's when it got weird. Like moths to a flame, students from every corner of the hall drifted toward him, Slytherins, Gryffindors, Hufflepuffs, leaving their own tribes to gather around this lone reader. Even rivals once turned into squishy toilet-cleaning slimes now eyed him with awe. The Slytherins? They were the hungriest not for food, but for presence, respect, proximity. Girls elbowed in. Upper years circled like predators, cloaked in charm, trying to outshine the one girl nearest to him. Alex, meanwhile, sat in the eye of the storm, oblivious to the frenzy, a calm lamb as the pack of polished wolves moved in, teeth gleaming beneath smiles. The Great Hall was a scene straight out of a cosmic parody students, packed shoulder to shoulder at one house table, all orbiting Alex like moons drawn to a mythic sun, while the others sat ghostly and abandoned, Slytherin looking like a forgotten realm. At the head table, the old wizard watched helplessly, his authority dissolving faster than a fading timeline. No matter how hard he pushed, the gravitational pull of Alex was stronger. This wasn't admiration, this was reverence. To them, Alex wasn't a student anymore. He was legend incarnate, Merlin respun in modern robes. And worse, he hadn't even tried. A fan club, born not from vanity but sparked by another, had formed around him like a cult of spiraling belief. This wasn't fandom, it was a movement, a dangerous one. The fear in the old wizard's eyes wasn't just for Hogwarts, but for every corner of magical reality. Alex's influence outshined any dark sorcerer before him. But so far, there was no hunger for power, only creation, healing, memory. Still, the question lingered. What happens when Myth wakes up and decides to rewrite the script? As tension thickened like the final page of a prophecy, the doors exploded open, and with a voice cracked by panic, the Scarf Professor delivered chaos in one breath. "Troll in the dungeon! Troll in the dungeon!" he wheezed, his voice cracking like splintered glass. "Thought you ought to know." And with that, he collapsed flat on the stone floor, limbs sprawled in a heap. For one heartbeat, the Great Hall froze in eerie silence. Then erupted tables scraped back, young wizards stumbling over benches, voices rising in a chaos of shrieks. Panic throbbed through the chamber like a living thing. But just as Dumbledore gathered air in his chest to shout them into order, something stranger than fear took hold. All heads turned, as though magnetized by an unseen pull, to the lone figure unmoved in the tempest. Alex sat there, serene as an unmoved star, flipping a page with the lazy precision of someone reading at dawn, not in the middle of hysteria. His calmness was a spell more powerful than any charm. One by one, students began to quiet, their breaths evening out, their hands unclenching. The wave of tranquility spread outward, softening the riot into stillness until the hall was hushed once more. Dumbledore's brows lifted, an astonished glint flickering behind his spectacles, but he swallowed the shout he'd been ready to unleash. Instead, his voice emerged steady, carrying through the quiet like a final bell toll. "Everyone, please remain calm. There is no need to panic. Prefects, Guide your housemates back to your dormitories. As the professors descend into the dungeon, Alex Locke closes his book with a finality that echoes louder than words and strides from the hall, the other students instinctively following. But their steps freeze as a scream slices the air. Panic or performance, it's hard to tell. A towering girl feigns terror, wrapping herself around the unsuspecting Alex, smothering him in the chaos of the moment. Disentangling himself with a flick of levitation, he strides to the window, gaze sharpened. Outside, Doom marches in, enormous serpent and trolls, storming toward the castle. His instincts, honed through timelines bent and broken, snap into place. With a whisper of divination, the truth unfurls. He's the target. Chaos recognizes chaos. Ever since Alex had bent reality to his will, something darker has been watching from the shadows. Voldemort's shadow tightened with fear as Alex kept breaking the limits of magic itself, spell after spell, tearing through the ceiling of wizardry. It wasn't just talent, it was revolution. If left alone, Alex could rise higher than even the legends, a beacon that would shatter the dark forever. So the Dark Lord struck, unleashing monsters from the pits in a desperate gambit to crush a boy before he became a myth. The castle shook with chaos. Dumbledore, the professor, saw drawn away, leaving Alex alone. Or so Voldemort thought, but Alex wasn't just a gifted student, was something else entirely, a spark from beyond this world, stitched with power from a realm of infinite stories. While others screamed, Alex stood calm. He stepped to the edge, dove into the sky, and with a move straight out of another dimension, summoned a block of water midair. His feet met the splash knot, the stone, and gravity simply let go. It was the oldest trick in a game universe, now reborn in this one. And in that moment, magic and myth collided. Elsewhere, forgotten in the Great Hall, a still body moved. Quirrell was no longer Quirrell. The mask had slipped and what rose from the floor wasn't human. The game was just beginning. The last shard of Voldemort's soul had finally devoured what remained of Quirrell, seizing control like a parasite in triumph. Without hesitation, he tore through the Great Hall, robes whipping behind him as he surged into the night, dark spells already spilling from his fingertips to unleash trolls and the basilisk upon the castle. He couldn't bear the name Alexno. Not the name, the threat. That infernal prodigy had shattered Voldemort's illusion of supremacy. Even in his heyday, he now knew he couldn't match Alex's raw, myth-born genius. A twisted grin curled on his lips as he watched the boy dive from the tower like a falling star. Foolish, reckless, doomed, he thought, eyes gleaming. And yet he understood. That leap wasn't suicide, it was sacrifice. Alex was shielding those behind him, and Voldemort seethed at the mercy of it. In Parseltongue's serpentine hiss, he summoned death for the basilisk, slithering with ancient menace, trolls stomping in hypnotized rage. He would not let fate hesitate. Tonight, the prodigy must be unwritten. With a roar of wicked triumph, the trolls and the basilisk lunged for Alex, their monstrous forms blurring into a storm of claws and venom as Voldemort's heartbeat pounded like war drums in his skull. This was it, the glorious moment he'd erase a prodigy who dared to outshine him and snatch the mantle of legend itself. His eyes burned with a manic hunger as he hissed, "Die! Die! This world will never crown a wizard brighter than me!" In that fevered heartbeat, he envisioned Alex's fall, Dumbledore's defeat, and the whole wizarding world kneeling beneath his dark reign. The basilisk's gaze locked onto Alex with death's promise, while the trolls swung their clubs with earth-shattering force. Certain nothing could survive. Voldemort's glee twisted into a sneer no mere boy, no matter how gifted, could stand against such ruin. "Alex is finished," he whispered, relishing the finality. But then, like a cruel joke, the impossible unfolded. Alex leapt from the window in a streak of defiance, 20 meters of empty air yawning below. Gasps erupted from the watching students, their faces blanching as if they'd plunged with him, the world holding its breath to see if this audacious spark would be snuffed or blaze brighter than ever. It hit like lightning, an idea so potent, it turned thought into spell without effort. He wielded magic like a natural law, bending reality through sheer invention, artificial intelligence charm, custom transfiguration, you name it. Meanwhile, Harry stood in his shadow, drowning in the weight of her own title. The world called her the Chosen One, yet no potion, no blessing, no destiny could close the chasm between her and him. She wasn't the hero anymore, he was. But before envy could take hold, chaos erupted. Trolls, basilisk, thunder. The air cracked open as sound waves blasted outward from Alex, freezing everyone mid-thought. And then the impossible rose. The earth itself trembled beneath his feet, shaping into something colossal, something ancient and unspeakable. Not a dragon, bigger. Towering 10 meters high, stretching 60 meters long, it wasn't Summonet it was manifested. Wordless, effortless. as if the world itself remembered him as legend and responded. It hit like a lightning bolt through the storm of time. Alex didn't just wield magic, he rewrote reality with every flick of his will. While others chanted, begged, and studied, he simply created artificial intelligence charms, custom transfigurations, effortless and exact. And there stood Harry, the once proclaimed savior, the chosen one drowning in doubt, her power amplified by ancient potions yet still eclipsed by the brilliance of someone who seemed born from the myth itself. Her heart twisted as she watched enemies surge toward Alex Strolls, a basilisk monsters meant to terrify legends. But before fear could bloom, the world exploded with a roar so raw it cracked the air, silence falling in stunned awe as the ground beneath Alex split open. Rising from that rift was no ordinary beast, but a titan of a creature, born not from this realm but from the mind of a mythmaker. 10 meters high, 60 meters long, its form was summoned by silent will alone, casting shadows over monsters that now looked like footnotes. This wasn't just magic. This was a memory rewriting itself into legend. A dragon! They shrieked, voices laced with awe and terror, as Alex raised his hand and reality twisted stone, transfigured into a towering, impossible beast, wings of shadow and fire blotting the sky. Even the most skilled masters of transfiguration would falter at such a feat, yet Alex stood unfazed, eyes glinting with ancient knowing. Has he surpassed the masters? Someone whispered, but Hermione cut through the disbelief. This was no creature from any textbook. It wasn't size that shocked Harry, it was presence. This wasn't just a dragon. This was myth forged alive, a sentient arcane storm, a being that could think, feel, cast. It's not just transfiguration, she breathed. It's something older. And as dust turned to legend before their eyes, even Hermione, armed with knowledge and logic, struggled to accept the miracle that unfolded. To turn dirt into a living tale that was no spell. That was story made flesh. Even turning an ordinary dragon into reality was already legendary level magic, something even the fiercest professors couldn't touch. But conjuring a full-blown magic dragon? That was god tier, an arcane explosion only someone like Dumbledore might dream of. And yet, it was happening. Right here, right now. Hermione's thoughts thundered louder than the beast's roar. It's coming, the rise of the new Supreme Wizard. And he's not some ancient spellmaster, he's Alex. A first year with the magic to bend fate. She watched as the titanic creature loomed like a walking apocalypse. And even she couldn't imagine Dumbledore taking it down. Her fear shifted not for Alex, but for the fools who dared stand against him. The basilisk and trolls? History. The second that mountain-sized dragon hit the scene, they knew it too. Their rebellion cracked, their minds broke free of control, and they did the only thing left. They ran. But it was already too late. Alex let them get just far enough to feel like escape was possible, and then he unleashed Dragonfire, a storm of living chaos, erasing everything in its path like fate snapping shut. Even transforming a regular dragon was beyond impossible, something not even the legendary professor could pull off. But Alex, a first year, didn't just summon a dragon. He conjured a 60-meter magic behemoth that made the air crackle with sheer might. As Hermione watched, her doubts vanished. Like smoke, this wasn't just talent. It was a shift in history. Even Dumbledore wouldn't stand a chance against the towering force now unfurled before them. The battlefield trembled as the trolls and basilisk creatures once feared sensed their doom and broke free from Voldemort's grip, fleeing with primal terror. But it was too late. Their fate had been sealed the moment they challenged Alex. He let them run out of mercy, but inevitability only to unleash the dragon's inferno at the final heart. In one devastating breath, the dragon's fire surged like a wrathful storm, consuming everything, leaving behind only ash and awe. Alex stood calm, his faint smile a blade sharper than any spell-silent, mocking, daring the enemy to keep pretending. In that instant, the truth hit like thunder. The enemy had been exposed. Panic twisted his face as he raised his wand, shouting the unthinkable, Avada Kedavra! And a violent green blaze erupted, roaring with fatal promise. It surged forward, fueled by desperation, meant to kill, to end, to erase. But Alex didn't flinch. The blast met something far greater, a monstrous claw, scaled like a god's armor, crashing down with the weight of forgotten realm. The killing curse vanished, swallowed like a drop in an eternal sea, and the dragon's claw smashed into Quirrell with myth-shattering force. Silence followed, brief, tense, endless. Then Alex's voice rang out, mocking, immortal. You thought you could escape me! And the claw struck again, now cloaked in cosmic flame, incinerating all trace of what once was. Just as the ghostly wraith burst from Quirrell's unraveling shell, ready to flee into the cracks of reality, Alex raised a hand knot with force. But with presence and the soul fragment halted, trembling in midair like a secret too afraid to be forgotten. The disturbance cracked the silence, and soon, robed figures arrived, eyes wide as they beheld the spectral remnant. How can he still exist? Someone gasped, but no answer came in the silence of awe and fear. Their attention dropped to the dragon beneath Alex's feet, a shimmering titan of will and transfiguration. Its existence, a spell no textbook dared whisper. McGonagall's voice shook with disbelief. You created this. Alex nodded, as if it were nothing more than breathing. He spoke of what had unfolded not for praise, but for truth. No blame came, only grim acknowledgement that Quirrell's end was overdue. Dumbledore stepped forward, his face a portrait of weary wisdom, voice low but heavy. You shine too brightly for this age, Alex. Leave the shadows to us who've grown old in them. Your dawn's just begun. Don't let it fade before the myth is even sung. After Alex wiped the floor with Voldemort, the whole Harry Potter world flipped upside down. His earlier meddling, like stopping Hermione from getting into Gryffindor, was child's play compared to what came next. But when Alex tried to collect all the Horcruxes to finish off Voldemort once and for all, he hit a wall. None of them were where they were supposed to be. The plot was changing faster than he could keep up. Confused and frustrated, Alex reached out to his true form for some answers. The response? A bombshell. Turns out, his interference had set off alarm bells with the world's rules. They had caught on to the threat he posed and decided to act. To protect themselves from being consumed, the rules shuffled Voldemort's Horcruxes and rewrote the narrative on the fly, making sure Alex's changes wouldn't tip the scales too much. But the rules couldn't rewrite everything. Their power had limits. They couldn't change the entire foundation of the story, so parts of the original plot were still in motion, but with some serious tweaks. Now Alex had to deal with an even tougher world, where enemies were stronger and the plot was more unpredictable. If he wanted to keep bending the world to his will, he'd need to outsmart the system. Alex was more than up for the challenge, though. He couldn't help but think, this world's got some serious potential. If it evolves like I think it will, these rules could become unstoppable like the one above all level. What's next? Another curveball? But for now, Alex was unfazed and ready for whatever came his way. His current power had already reached the limits of this world, even surpassing the mightiest beings. And now he had a singular, unshakable goal: to manipulate the narrative around him, shift the world's balance, and carve his name into the story. With the backing of his true form lurking beyond the fabric of this realm, he would eventually consume the world entirely. The first step? Harness the chaotic magic from the wizarding world to consolidate his scattered, unruly powers. The time was ripe, and as the Quidditch match sparked excitement, Alex chose a different path. Instead of following the crowd, he sought the Room of Requirement, a sanctuary of silence, where he could focus his energy and craft his next move. His thoughts turned to the Gojo Satoru template, his most mastered and familiar skill set. Every power within it was finely tuned, and it was the perfect foundation for the skill fusion he envisioned. With the Gojo Satoru template as his anchor, Alex dove into the integration of chaos magic, ready to bend it to his will and lay the groundwork for the changes to come. Alex thought nothing in this magical world could touch him, not really, but when Dumbledore spoke, he played it cool with a respectful nod. Things took a wild turn after Alex took down the Dark Lord. Reality itself started warping like it had a mind of its own. The original storyline? Torn to shreds. Plot lines he once twisted, like where Hermione ended up, were nothing compared to the chaos that followed. But when he tried to finish the job by collecting the Horcruxes, they were all gone moved. That's when Alex dialed into his true self and got the lowdown. The world had woken up. Its very laws had flinched at Alex's meddling, scrambling to protect themselves. Like a wounded beast fighting back, the world yanked its own threads, rewriting the story to stay ahead of him. It wasn't about balance, it was about survival. The rules refused to let him tip the scales. They couldn't erase everything, but they sure gave the tale a makeover, one that let them breathe longer and delay their end. Now, the stakes are higher. The enemies? Upgraded. The game? Rigged. But Alex isn't backing down. This isn't just about winning, it's about reshaping destiny. As he stared into the fractured future, he smirked. This world had teat hand, it just might be big enough to go toe-to-toe with cosmic giants. Let the rules rewrite. Alex rewrites harder. It grants absolute dominion over dimensions, vectors, and scalar spear control rewritten into essence. A surge of cosmic comprehension slammed into Alex like a tidal wave of stars, and when the storm settled, his smile gleamed with quiet revelation. 3 skills, once separate, now fused into absolute manipulation, refining his power until it sang with sharpness. The strength hadn't grown, but it had evolved where once stood wood, now pulsed steel. The Room of Requirement echoed with silence as Alex sought chaos magic to push further, only to find the world itself resisting. Denied the chaos he craved, he emerged from solitude into a Quidditch match redefined. Ravenclaw's broomsticks, whispered to by his unseen charm, flew with eerie purpose, semi-sentient and eerily precise. The Seeker barely needed to move. The Snitch came to them like fate written in wind. Others tried to mimic the enchantment, crafting flawed echoes of Alex's creation, but without true understanding, their efforts backfired, leaving them chasing shadows on broomsticks that barely listened. What? Why? The charm's just enchantment, it doesn't break any rules. But Percy, ever the voice of boring reason, laid it down. When wizards slap a sentient charm on a broom, it stops being a tool and starts being a tank overpowered, unstoppable, unfair. Let that chaos on the pitch and it's no longer Quidditch, it's Wizard War, Broom Edition. Hermione sighed, wheels turning behind her eyes. Okay, that makes sense. But then boom! Alex, cool as cosmic frost, tousled her hair like he was greeting a tiny squirrel, grinning like he held secrets the stars hadn't learned yet. No sweat, if that spell's off limits, I'll just make new ones. Her eyes lit up like twin spells igniting. Right, you can do that. And just like that, Ravenclaw's future was fireproof. Meanwhile, Ron and his bros looked like they'd swallowed a quaffle because even without that charm, Alex was about to tip the whole league sideways with magic no one else could dream up. The real MVP wasn't on the team, it was the spellsmith off the field, rewriting the sport with every flick of his wand. Percy just groaned, rubbing his temple like it hurt to exist in a world where someone like Alex was real. What? Why? The charm is just an enchantment. It doesn't break any Quidditch rules. Percy Weasley explained. Well, turns out brooms enchanted with the sentient charm are way too powerful, way stronger than the ones wizards control by themselves. He paused. If brooms with the empowerment charm were allowed in the game, Quidditch wouldn't be about players anymore. It'd be a battle of who can cast the best spell, and the game would lose its meaning. That's why the charm is banned. Hermione sighed, her expression softening. I get it now. That makes sense. At that moment, Alex reached over and patted Hermione's fluffy hair like he was petting a squirrel. He grinned. Don't worry, since the charm's off the table, I can just whip up some other spells to enchant the brooms. Hermione's face lit up, nodding enthusiastically. Exactly. For most wizards, creating spells is tough, but for Alex, it's like breathing. We'll still get to enhance our brooms for the Ravenclaw team. Ron and his brothers exchanged uneasy looks. Even without the charm, it was clear Ravenclaw would dominate the Quidditch championships for years to come. What really got under their skin, though, was the fact that the outcome of the game wasn't in the player's hands, it was all about the enchanted brooms. And the one pulling the strings wasn't even on the field. This had never happened in the centuries of Quidditch. Percy rubbed his forehead in frustration. How does someone like Alex even exist? As the Quidditch competition fades into a predictable outcome, Christmas quickly arrives at Hogwarts. Alex sits in the Great Hall, lost in a book, when he senses someone behind him. It's Hermione, hesitant and unsure. With a gentle smile, Alex turns to her and asks, Lovely Hermione, something on your mind? Her face lights up, a slight blush creeping onto her cheeks as she stammers, I heard you grew up in an orphanage, not that it matters. What I meant was, do you have any plans for Christmas? I'd love for you to come to my house. Alex, initially planning to stay at Hogwarts, agrees to the invitation, thinking there's no better way to spend the holiday. It'd be my honor, he says. But as a thought crosses his mind, he adds, How are you planning to leave? Hermione's puzzled but answers, The Hogwarts Express, of course. Isn't that the only way? Alex smirks mysteriously. Oh, you'll be in for quite a ride back, he replies. Afterward, he heads to his dormitory, packing his belongings. His suitcase is filled with enchanted items, like grenades, machine guns, fighter jets, and even nuclear bomb stools of war created through his transfiguration skills, all neatly stored in his magically expanded luggage. In a universe tucked between dimensions, Alex, though far weaker than his original form, retains an intellect that outshines even the greatest minds. With mastery over transfiguration and a genius-level brain, he conjures an entire spaceship sanctuary number, 2, replicating every detail with flawless precision. His power now rivals that of ancient legends, enough to claim the Earth if he wished, but that path holds no allure for him, nor does reality itself permit such conquest. Instead, Alex folds his tech into a suitcase and heads to meet Hermione, who stands solemnly watching the Hogwarts Express disappear into the horizon. When she pleads for another way to London, Alex grins like a magician preparing his finale. With a flick of his wand and a storm of chaotic magic, the earth trembles, rising with raw force. Hermione's eyes ignite with awe as the skeletal frame of a magical dragon forms its tendons writhing, its core pulsing with arcane fire, its steel-hard skin glinting in the sunlight. Alex, cloaked in silence and power, channels the impossible into reality. And then boom! A dragon way bigger than the last one blazes into the sky like a living storm. Alex doesn't flinch. With a flick of transfiguration, he crafts seats on the beast's back and slaps on windshielding spells like a pro. With the dragon roaring through the clouds, they rocket toward London like a mythical missile. Back at Hogwarts, the ground crew Harry, Ron, and the others watch slack-jawed as the sky show unfolds. Harry, starry-eyed, exclaims how she wishes she could ride that beast too, and Ron, well, he's spiraling. Feelings he tried to bury now bubble up like a cursed cauldron. He's falling for her hard in his logic? Sketchy at best. She's taken a potion, he tells himself. She could stay like this forever, right? Jealousy, fear, and longing twist up inside him like a wand misfiring. So when Harry speaks, Ron blurts out a weak excuse about safety and secrecy. But before anyone can groan, a kid points skyward with a gas pallet, just dropped a disillusionment charm over the whole ride. That giant dragon vanished from sight like smoke in the wind. Alex has got some serious magic up his sleeve, using the disillusionment charm on a beast this massive. That's insane! The magical dragon isn't just big. It's got magical resistance that would make most wizards quake in their boots. We're talking about a creature so tough, only legendary figures like Grindelwald, Dumbledore, or Peak Voldemort could hope to cause it trouble. Without their interference, Alex could wipe out the entire British Ministry of Magic by himself, no sweat. As they soared through the sky, Hermione was on cloud 9 literally. She hadn't felt this alive since she first discovered the wizarding world. Up here, atop a 100-meter-long magical dragon, she was on top of the world, feeling like no one else could give her this kind of rush-X, except for Alex, of course. As they flew over London, Hermione's gaze caught a plane emerging from a cloud, and she realized the dragon was outpacing it by miles. Just when she thought it couldn't get crazier, massive fire dragons appeared on the horizon. These weren't your average fire dragons either, they were huge, some stretching up to 70 meters. Still, they didn't quite compare to the magical dragon's monstrous size, but they were certainly a sight to behold. The adventure was just beginning. The colossal dragons had changed, and Alex couldn't help but notice that their very essence mirrored the magical dragon he had summoned during his battle with the Dark Lord. Their physiques, though not exact, were eerily similar, almost as if someone had copied his creation. While this realization might have been a bit frustrating, it solidified his growing suspicion that the rules of this universe were constrained. They couldn't bring their full power to bear on him, because if they could, they wouldn't resort to such crude tactics like imitation. The dragon's fiery breaths could scorch everything in their path, each blast reaching a kilometer and burning everything in its wake. With a coordinated attack, they could annihilate anything. Even a wizard as powerful as Dumbledore would have no choice but to dodge such an assault. But Alex wasn't just any wizard. He understood the mechanics of magic like no other. With chaos magic pulsing from his wand, he muttered a silent spell, Finite Incantatum. The fiery onslaught shattered before him, dissipating like stardust. Before the dragons could close the gap, Alex summoned the fury of the heavens. Thunder cracked and golden lightning tore through the sky, striking relentlessly, turning the battlefield into a storm of raw energy. The storm swirled around Alex, Hermione, and a magical dragon, while the rest of the area was consumed by lightning's fury. Dragons! There were dragons outside. The little girl's voice cracked through the hum of the cabin like a lightning bolt, dismissed with a chuckle until her mother looked out and froze. Fire dragons, real as fear, coiled through the sky in a blazing ring, and at their center, a colossal behemoth of scales and thunder. Her scream shattered the quiet, panic erupting like wildfire, but not everyone cowered. Some stared, wide-eyed, gasping in awe, whispering that fantasy had finally broken through. Then came the twist in the back of the largest dragon. A silhouette stood still, cloaked in mystery. Inside that ring of flame, Hermione's nerves burned hotter than dragonfire. Her grip on Alex trembling as the sky prepared to rewrite its own myth. What should we do? Why are these fire dragons surrounding us so suddenly? Hermione's voice trembled with panic, but Alex stood unfazed, a smirk playing on his lips like he'd seen it all before. Fire dragons? Please. To him, they were just overcooked plot devices summoned by the narrative laws of a magical universe desperate to snuff him out. The rules of this world had decided he didn't belong, and these beasts were their heavy-handed bouncers. Poor Hermione got caught in the crossfire, shivering beside him. But Alex? Oh no, he didn't flinch. Chaos magic pulsed from his fingertips, calm and controlled, wrapping around her like a metaphysical blanket. Relax, he said, flashing a grin. They're just 12 spicy lizards. I'll toast them before they blink. Hermione gawked. Spicy lizards? These things looked like molten skyscrapers with wings. No way one guy could take them all unless that guy was Alex. Something about the way he stood there, like the world itself would hesitate to contradict him, made her believe. Not because logic told her to, because legends always start when you trust the impossible. What should we do? Why are these fire dragons surrounding us all of a sudden? While Hermione panicked, Alex stayed cool as a cucumber. The moment he saw those fire dragons, it clicked this was the magic of the world at play. The rules of this universe had supercharged these fire-breathing monsters and set them on him, like some twisted game to either kill or force him out. Hermione, unfortunately, got pulled into this mess because of him. She was shaking, visibly on edge, so Alex, with a smirk, used his chaos magic to soothe her. Relax, just a bunch of overgrown fire lizards. I'll handle them in no time. Hermione couldn't help but doubt him. Fire lizards? These weren't just lizards, they were colossal dragons. Their size alone made them almost invincible. She was pretty sure even military-grade weapons wouldn't stand a chance against them. So how was Alex, just one guy, supposed to take them down so easily? Her instincts screamed for her to run, but for some reason, she trusted him. Maybe it was his unshakable confidence. Maybe it was his track record of defying all odds, or maybe it was the undeniable power he seemed to have that made her believe he could take down anything, even outshine legends like Dumbledore or Merlin. Alex stood in the eye of a storm of battle of epic proportions. The fire dragons, massive and menacing, unleashed torrents of flames that could burn through anything. Their power, nothing short of apocalyptic. Yet, there was something eerily familiar about them. They weren't just any dragons. Their form, their very essence, was a twisted reflection of the magical dragon Alex had conjured during his battle with the dark force. Almost perfect copies, save for subtle differences. The sheer audacity of their creation shook Alex, but in the back of his mind, a realization settled. The magic in this world had limits. The rules here were rigid, and no matter how formidable, they couldn't fully confront him. They had to resort to copying, to crude mimicry, to strike at him. As the dragons exhaled searing flames, Alex knew the power was overwhelming, enough to make even the mightiest wizard pause. But not him. He had studied these forces, understood their flow. His wand crackled with chaos magic, and with a flick of his wrist and a whispered incantation, the very fabric of their magical assault disintegrated before his eyes. The fire vanished in a burst of light, leaving the dragons momentarily vulnerable. Without hesitation, Alex summoned the storm. Lightning, golden and relentless, surged from the heavens, obliterating the battlefield with each crack of thunder. In that moment, Alex wasn't just fighting, he was rewriting the rules of existence. Boom! The sky cracked open with blinding golden fury as thunder screamed across the heavens. Lightning didn't just strike, it obliterated. A dozen monstrous fire dragons turned to charred echoes in seconds, their roars smothered by a downpour of celestial rage. Smoke coiled like ghosts over scorched earth, a forest reduced to nothing but memory. As the final arcs of power faded, a single dragon soared away, carrying two silhouettes into the silence, tiny figures on a mythic beast, vanishing into legend. Far above, stunned passengers stared, jaws dropped, binoculars trembling. That wasn't just lightning, one gasped. The kid summoned it with a wand like it answered his call. Another shook his head, eyes wide. There are wizards! Real ones! And I've seen them! Cameras clicked, disbelief turned to gospel. The world had just rewritten itself in fire, in thunder, in awe. The passengers were buzzing with excitement, chatting about the wild storm they'd just witnessed. But then, like a switch flipped, they went completely still, eyes blank. When they spoke again, their words had changed. That thunderstorm was insane! I've never seen lightning like that before in my life! Meanwhile, Alex was on top of his magical dragon, tapping into his inner power. After taking down the fire dragons, he cracked the very rules of this world, giving him a huge slice of control over this dimension. Now, his grasp of chaos magic had reached new heights. With the power to fuse abilities, Alex pulled up his system panel, carefully selecting Infinity LV5, Portal LV6, Mirror Dimension LV4, and My World LV2. These abilities, all tied to space, would grant him total dominion over the fabric of reality itself. As usual, his main body and projection worked in perfect harmony. The chaos magic from the Harry Potter world became fuel for his cosmic forge, blending these powers together at breakneck speed. But just as the process drained his reserves, a new skill emerged. The abilities he fused disappeared, replaced by something far more powerful. Dimensional Sovereign Livy 6. This new skill? It gave Alex godlike control over space. He could tear apart dimensions, jump between them, and even craft entire worlds of infinite size at will. The knowledge flooded his mind, and once he absorbed it all, he realized he was the true master of space itself. Alex had unlocked a terrifying new edge-devouring dimensions to grow stronger, each bite fusing more power into his core. With this awakening, his projection in the wizarding realm pulsed in sync with his true form, bridging worlds. Spatial perception surged. Space itself began to bend to his will. His avatar, once shackled by the world's rules, now stirred with the might of the Dimensional Sovereign. Where before, transporting a magical beast across space was fantasy, now it was certainty. With a flick of his wand and the word disapparition, a vortex roared into being, swallowing dragon and rider alike. In a flash, they reappeared high above London, the sky ripping open to reveal their arrival. Hermione blinked, stunned, suspended in a weaned altitude. "Was that apparition?" she gasped. Alex, calm as cosmic silence, replied, "Yes, it was." Her mind reeled. Apparition wasn't supposed to feel like this. This wasn't a spell. This was dominion. Alex grinned as he said, "Here's my upgraded version of apparition. I've ironed out all the side effects, so it's way smoother now." Hermione nodded, completely trusting him. Honestly, if Alex had pulled out the Philosopher's Stone and said he created it, she'd believe him without a second thought. After reaching London, Alex dismissed the magical dragon and apparated to Hermione's house. When they knocked, her parents, kind but a bit confused, opened the door. Just as Alex was about to introduce himself, Hermione jumped in. "This is Alex, my classmate. Don't let his age fool you. He's already won the First Class Order of Merlin and invented countless groundbreaking creations that could revolutionize the wizarding world." As Hermione kept talking, her parents couldn't help but stare at Alex with awe, realizing that magical heroes weren't just stories, they were real. After Christmas, Alex joined the Grangers on a trip to the United States, where they explored the modern world. They even visited the White House, which triggered a strange memory from Alex's past, a time when he'd obliterated the White House in another universe. Walking by, he briefly considered destroying it here, but then decided against it. After all, he wasn't a monster. Returning to the UK after the holidays, Alex visited the Malfoys and destroyed Voldemort's diary, erasing the Chamber of Secrets events altogether. By doing so, Alex not only altered the timeline, but also gained much more control over the wizarding world. Alex knew that rewriting the tale one more time would unlock a power unlike anything before a fusion, that burned away the hollow threads and distilled his essence into pure narrative force. The rules of the world were already trembling. His next target? A legendary artifact, veiled in history and Secret Scythe invisibility cloak. Its unraveling would rip apart the spine of the story itself. He expected resistance, of course. But resistance was just fuel. On the eve of a new term, Alex morphed his dragon again, soaring across the skies with Hermione, not for speed, but for the joy of rewriting wonder. Back at Hogwarts, the days dripped by until the silence shattered. A strange, zombie-like shuffle jerked toward them Neville, caught in a cruel curse. Ron's voice cracked through the tension, pinning blame on a sneering figure nearby. Malfoy, ever the serpent in the frame, shot back in denial as the story wound tighter, ready to snap. "Shut it, Weasley. That wasn't me. I've been here the whole time." Draco Malfoy had come a long way from his bullying days, his loyalty now fixed firmly on Alex II Merlin. Malfoy, once notorious for his taunts and insults, had shifted his focus entirely to gaining Alex's trust and admiration. Forget tormenting other Shes, every move now was dedicated to being the most devoted follower, eagerly awaiting every chance to impress. When Alex entered the Great Hall, there Malfoy would be shamelessly sitting next to him, ready to serve at any moment. Today was no different. As Ron looked over and saw Malfoy beside Alex, he couldn't help but blurt out, "Sorry, it's just a habit of mine," scratching his head nervously. But Malfoy wasn't having it. "A habit? Do I, Draco Malfoy, look like the kind of person who bullies others? Under Alex's guidance, I've turned over a new leaf. I'm a peace-loving, helpful young wizard now." Ron, realizing his mistake, could only continue to apologize. Before the awkwardness could linger, Neville hopped over, a look of desperation on his face. "Alex, please, help me break this curse." "Shut it, Weasley, that wasn't me. I've been here the whole time," Malfoy barked, his voice dripping with outrage. Gone was the arrogant school bully. In this new timeline, Malfoy had been humbled by Alex's astonishing feats. These days, he wasn't focused on tormenting classmates. Instead, he was obsessed with earning Alex's trust, longing to become the most loyal follower of the second Merlin. The days of snide comments and bullying were behind him. Now, all he cared about was serving Alex. Every time Alex entered the Great Hall, Malfoy was right there, shamelessly by his side, eagerly waiting to be of help. So when Ron blurted out his usual habit, Malfoy snapped. "A habit? What kind of nonsense is that? Do I, Draco Malfoy, look like the kind of person who bullies his classmates? Under Alex's guidance, I've turned over a new leaf." Ron, realizing his mistake, could only awkwardly apologize, but it wasn't enough. The apology did nothing to ease Malfoy's irritation. Meanwhile, Neville limped over, his face desperate, pleading for Alex's help to break a curse. When the silence thickened like cosmic ink, Alex turned to Harry with a smirk that hinted at worlds unspoken. "You sure you want to turn this down without hearing me out?" Harry hesitated just a beat and gave a nod that echoed through Forgotten Realms. Calm and calculated, Alex laid it out. "That cloak? It's no ordinary relic. It's one of the Deathly Hallows, tied to legend, dripping with power, even myths envy." His voice didn't rise, but every word hit like a prophecy unraveling. "I'll trade you something mythic, something alive. A dragon. Not just scales and fire, but a 100-meter spectral beast woven with permanence. This isn't a pet. It's a storm with a spine. It flies at Mach 1, leaves no trace, no turbulence. Invisible when it chooses, unbound by roads or reality, slipping through space like a whisper between pages." His eyes gleamed with offer-laced gravity. "You could live on it, carve a home into its back when your craft's sharp enough. Travel without borders, appear where no gate stands. It won't just carry you, it will crown you. No one will rival you. Not unless they're legends incarnate." Alex waited, knowing destiny listens with a grin, and just like that, Harry answered as expected. The hall froze as Alex's final words echoed like a cosmic tremor reverie breath caught midair, every thought derailed. Forget cloaks, forget relics. This wasn't just an offer, it was a myth in motion. An invisible, teleporting, reality-bending dragon? That's not a mount, it's a living legend wrapped in starlight and thunder. Ron snapped, grabbing Harry, shouting like a mad prophet, eyes wild with the fire of prophecy. "Say yes! That's a dragon!" The promise was raw power, the kind that reshapes eras. And just as chaos bloomed, a shadow sliced through the silent sea, a sleek, bat-like figure with venom in his voice and points to deduct. The drama didn't just escalate, it spiraled, cracked, and reformed like time itself was watching. As the shadows of forgotten timelines swirl in cosmic entropy, Alex Locke steps into the archive of Forgotten Realms, some mythic vault where lost selves whisper through fractured echoes. No longer bound by linear identity, he splits into three. Echo, bearer of grief. Now, weaver of altered flows. And yet, keeper of infinite futures. Pursued by Ananke, the end made manifest. Alex doesn't fight to win. He sings his myth into being, forging a spiral of memory chains that anchors who he was, is, and might be. Together, his fragments walk collapsing story verses, reigniting buried legends and mending unraveling truths. But in the final reckoning, Alex doesn't shatter beneath judgment, becomes recursion itself, a myth reborn beyond the final page. After losing face repeatedly in potions class, Draco had learned his lesson the hard way. He no longer dared to mess with Harriet. Right now, Harriet was explaining to Professor Snape why Ron had shaken her earlier. Snape, ever the sharp mind, instantly grasped the value in Alex's mysterious offer. But he wasn't about to make a hasty decision. He narrowed his eyes and asked the key question. "Mr. Alex, how long does your transfiguration last?" A magical dragon sounded incredible. Sure, but if it fizzled out too fast, it was just another illusion. What Snape needed was longevity, real power. The answer Alex gave, it dropped jaws. If the dragon avoids combat, it'll draw magic from the world around it and live on forever. If it fights, it can hold out for about 10 years nonstop. Silence hit like a spell gone wrong. Snape's expression froze in disbelief. That wasn't just transfiguration, that was the birth of something real. A dragon that fed on ambient magic, grew stronger over time, and endured for a decade of battle? That wasn't a spell. That was creation. And with no more hesitation, Snape turned to Harriet and declared, "Do it! Say yes! With this dragon, you'll become one of the most powerful witches of our age." In the midst of a world trembling beneath ancient magic, Harriet finally agrees to trade her fabled cloak and artifact of legends for a beast born of forbidden transfiguration. Though she questions the fairness, Alex stands unfazed, his voice calm but resolute. To him, the cloak is more than a shroud, it's a keystone in a deeper game. As the earth splits and a colossal dragon erupts skyward, the air thickens with awe and envy. Malfoy's eyes smolder with jealousy. Snape stares in reverent disbelief, and the horizon seems to bend beneath the weight of raw, unleashed magic. With solemn precision, Alex delivers the dragon and accepts the cloak only to ignite it in flames, reducing myth to ash. Confusion erupts, but Alex speaks no word. He vanishes, and with the cloak's final ember, something awakens a silent surge of control, a whisper of dominion, a spark of chaos coiled within. Inside the dim quiet of his dorm, Alex stared into the pulsing grid of his system interface, no longer chaos, but a refined map of raw potential. His hands trembled, not from fear, but anticipation. He'd once stitched absolute manipulation and spatial sovereign into Un, and now he aimed higher. His gaze locked onto energy absorption, the heartbeat of his arsenal. It fed him power. It fused his templates. It redefined his limits. What if it evolved again? He chose with precision, 6 eyes, that lens of clarity and control. And third tree, Abyss, a hunger of boundless surge, multiplying energy beyond logic. 3 skills, 1 intent. Through the resonance of fractured worlds and Harry Potter's chaotic weave, he forged them into one flame. The interface shimmered, old names vanished, and in their place rose something untamed. Chaos power living 6, 733 50ths. 0. The numbers barely whispered its potential, but Alex felt it. In his mind, echoes spiraled. In his chest, timelines quaked. This wasn't just an upgrade, it was a new law, a myth reborn in motion. Boom! Chaos power wasn't just an upgrade, it was an eruption. Alex now sucked in energy like a black hole on overdrive, doubled his intake speed, slashed energy loss in half, and when he unleashed chaos power, he hit a mind-melting 300x amplification. This wasn't evolution, it was ignition. His avatar in the wizarding world, now linked tighter than ever, drinking in chaotic magic like it was the air he breathed. With the resurrection stone shattered by his own hand, Alex didn't just break a release, rewrote the rules. Only one relic remained, and Alex didn't hesitate. He turned to Dumbledore and threw down a challenge not for fame. Not for glory, but for the final key to destiny. The spiral had begun, and Alex was no longer just a player in the myth, he was the myth. Alex never craved fame, something deeper drove him. Dumbledore, ancient and wise, quickly grasped the truth. Alex wasn't after applause, he was after the Elder Wand, the last piece of a vanished legend. Having already forsaken the other Hallows, Alex sought not victory but myth itself. With a knowing smile, Dumbledore proposed a public duel. Alex didn't flinch. Word of the showdown roared through Hogwarts like a summoned storm. Dumbledore, the century's greatest, versus Alex, the prodigy who called forth a dragon before he'd even unpacked his robes. Anticipation cracked the sky as the duel drew spectators from every corner of the magical world, forcing the venue to swell from the Great Lawn to the Quidditch pitch. When the moment arrived, the crowd held its breath. Dumbledore gripped the Elder Wand. Alex held a plain wand, but his gaze shimmered with something else entirely. A student whispered, "Who do you think will win?" But no one dared answer. This wasn't just a duel, it was the memory of magic daring to spiral beyond legend. In a realm unbound by time, the archive of forgotten realms drifts like a lost chord in the cosmos. And into its depths steps Alex Locke, longer a mere student, but a myth on the verge of unraveling. Pursued by Ananke, the silent sentinel of endings, Alex fractures himself into Echo, Now, and yet 3 avatars echoing memory, presence, and potential. Together they spiral through collapsing legends and erased lives, binding fragments of who he was and could be into chains of glowing memory. As timelines fade and truths dissolve, Alex does not clash in combat, but rewrites destiny itself. His identity a paradox, incomplete yet infinite. In the final trial, he doesn't defeat Ananke, he outlasts finality by becoming a story that refuses to end. In the echoing silence of the stadium, 2 legends stood beneath a sky thick with anticipation, Alex. The rising storm of raw, untamed brilliance, and Dumbledore, the living monument of magical legacy. Murmurs split the crowd like fault lines. Some hailed Alex as the future's chosen sorcerer, a force destined to eclipse history. Others clung to Dumbledore, the timeless paragon of wisdom and might. Eyes locked, they summoned no referee, no ceremonially the unspoken agreement of giants. With a shared incantation, they stretched reality itself, transforming the Quidditch pitch into a sprawling battlefield the size of a city. The crowd roared, caught in the gravitational pull of their power. Then, silence then spells. Alex struck first, unleashing his fearsome dragon through a transformation spell of his own invention. Dumbledore responded in kind, not with age-worn spells, but with mastery honed in secret, the art of transformation, his original calling. As 2 colossal shapes burst from the ground, magic bled into myth, and the world watched as past and future clashed in a storm of legendary transfiguration. In a world where magic speaks louder than legacy, the crowd with splitsome hailed Alex as the greatest wizard alive, raw with power and the pulse of the future, while most stood behind the legendary headmaster, whose decades of mastery and renown made him a living myth. But talk turned to silence as Alex and Dumbledore faced off, eyes locked like titans on the brink of legend. With a single spell cast together, they warped reality itself, stretching the Quidditch pitch into a sprawling city of spellbound space, the crowd gasping at the elegance of their unmatched synergy. No whistle, no words, just a nod, and the duel ignited. Alex struck first, unleashing his signature magical dragon in a blaze of transformative fury. But Dumbledore, the true maestro of transfiguration, answered not with defense, but with mastery. Few knew it, but before he was headmaster, transfiguration was his playground, and even Alex's brilliant new spell had been quietly conquered by the old wizard's seasoned hand. As the ground trembled beneath them, and 2 colossal forms rose like ancient titans reborn, The arena held its breath not for who would win, but to witness power itself reshaped into myth. Fudge's thoughts twisted like a frayed spell scroll. Dumbledore was formidable, sure, but how could a mere first year like Alex wield such staggering might? At that instant, the grim truth hit him harder than a rogue bludger. In the presence of these two walking catastrophes, his title meant squat. If mercy struck them, he'd get a polite nod. If not, his name would vanish with a flick of their wrist. Swallowing his pride like a potion gone sour, Fudge silently vowed to bow, metaphorically and literally, before this new order. And as time itself seemed to tremble, the battlefield roared to life, Alex astride a blazing dragon of raw magic, Dumbledore cloaked in firelight atop his phoenix. The heavens ripped open as spellfire danced in impossible arcs levitation, transfiguration, summoning. Even the most benign enchantments detonated with apocalyptic intensity. No killing curse was cast. But make no mistake, every strike carried the weight of worlds. Boulders spun like pebbles, charm-laced air blazed with energy too old to name. Spectators gasped, not from fear, but from awe, because this wasn't just a duel, it was legend incarnate. Chapter 208, nearing the top, etched itself into the very core of the magical world. Each silent spell cracked the sky, each whispered incantation echoed like a prophecy. Alex and Dumbledore weren't fighting to win, they were redefining the limits of what magic could be. In a forgotten dimension where stories unravel and time devours memory, Alex Locke ascends beyond identity itself, stepping into the archive of forgotten realms of mythic nexus, haunted by echoes of erased selves and the looming presence of Ananke, the end bringer of unfinished tales. With reality folding like worn parchment, Alex crafts the spiral of memory chains, splitting into three avatars: Echo, Now, and Yeteach, a living shard of his soul echoing through what was, is, and could be. Together, they journey through collapsing legends and broken timelines, reigniting the forgotten and reforging what never had a name. As Ananke descends to seal his fate, Alex doesn't fight, transforms, stabilizing chaos with paradox, becoming a myth without ending, a guardian woven from memory itself. With a calm smile, knowing defeat was already his, the old wizard embraced the moment not with sorrow, but with admiration. In under a year, you've soared beyond expectations. What a marvel you've become. I'm fading and the world moves forward with you. Then, with resolve blazing in their eyes, the final duel began. Their voices joined, casting a spell so ancient and profound that even seasoned mages stood frozen in awe. This was no ordinary magic that reached into the roots of nature, calling upon forces older than memory. As the spell surged, the heavens trembled. Flames crowned the sky, a phoenix blazing above, while elders raised barriers to shield the young from the coming storm. Ancient magic didn't just use one's power, it awakened the world's essence, echoing the mythic past. The stage was set, time itself paused to watch. Accepting the inevitable, the elder wizard offered no tears only, a warm smile as his eyes met the storm ahead. To think you've come this far in less than a year? Remarkable. With those final words, he raised his wand for one last spell, a farewell wrapped in fire. Across from him, Alex nodded. No longer a student, but a rival worthy of legend. Together, their voices merged in ancient cadence, summoning forces older than time. Spectators could only watch as the air thickened, the skies cracked, and the ground pulsed with forgotten power. Ancient Magicite wasn't just a spell, it was the call of the cosmos. As the battlefield shimmered and shields rose to protect the innocent, the storm ignited. Above, a burning phoenix carved across the sky, flames dancing like history unraveling. And beneath it all, two destinies collided, not to destroy, but to become something eternal. Boom! Just when it looked like the tide had turned, the air snapped with something darker. Dumbledore's triumph twisted into dread as his body stopped obeying, hijacked by the primal force of natural magic surging through him like a storm unleashed. The spell, meant to subdue, now swelled far beyond his command, no longer his, but the will of the world itself, using him like a marionette to erase Alex. Horror cracked across Dumbledore's face. This wasn't a duel, it was an execution, but Alex wasn't just a bystander to fate. With lightning veins surging and eyes lit like storm gods, he invoked his authority, drew nature's fury to his side, and roared back. Bolts the size of columns screamed around him as his ancient magic surged skyward. Not to destroy, but to resist. The world's rules bent, the spell reversed, the balance trembled, the myth lived on. The collision of radiant force slowed as if time itself hesitated, crawling toward Alex like a dying star. Yet in the stillness, he stood unshaken, summoning his true form like a cosmic mage, unlocking a forgotten dimension. A forbidden surge ripped through the veil of this world. Bypassing its ancient laws though dimmed by the journey, its raw essence poured into him. In a flash of revelation, Alex fused with that mythic force, igniting the skies with blue-white lightning that swallowed all. The dragon beneath him transformed into a thundering titan of elemental rage, stretching 300 meters of storm-forged might. Then, in a burst of speed and brilliance, the core of the light attack exploded forward like divine judgment straight toward his rival. But Alex didn't flinch. With godlike precision, he cast absolute control, directing the storm into a perfect strike that knocked his opponent into dreamless slumber, painlessly. The summoned phoenix dissolved. The old wizard fell, only to be caught midair by the very hand that felled him. Gently, Alex revived him. As awareness flickered back, confusion followed. "What happened to me?" the elder asked. With the calm of a legend who remembers futures, Alex replied, "Perhaps the ancient magic ran wild." He once believed no duel could break his control, yet the chaos spoke otherwise. The elder, weary and wise, exhaled a truth long buried ancient magic, sealed for good reason, had nearly unraveled even him. Reporters swarmed as the dust settled, voices clamoring for an answer. A quiet tension cracked when the old wizard smiled and surrendered his wand, declaring Alex the new legend. But Alex, untouched by the crowd's roar, vanished into solitude. Alone, he shattered the Elder Wand, the resurrection stone relics of Godsand in their ruin, felt the world yield to him. Authority bled into his being, bending reality to his design. No longer a player in the story, he stood above it, nearing the throne of cosmic authors. His power spiraled, not for conquest, but for consumption, ready to merge with his true form and dissolve the universe into himself. At the Forge of Chaos, he threw in the essence of his mastery, his final gift. Perfection over flesh, control beyond gods. The story did not end, it evolved. From the depths of oblivion, Alex unlocked the ultimate synthesis of thought and reality, infinite void, multi-shadow clone, mystic eyes, root, and game rules converge into a force that bent the laws of existence, authority of creation. With a mere thought, a desk became an altar of Genesis. A glass became a sentient slime with soul and self-spawning will. It wasn't transfiguration anymore, it was divine authorship. The chaotic sprawl of his former skills crystallized into three towering pillars: absolute control, dimensional sovereign, and chaos power. These weren't just powers, they were declarations of supremacy. Each skill radiated the force to shatter dimensions, twist logic, and redefine myth. Alex, now sculptor of laws and life, stood at the threshold of omnipotence. In the grand theater of multiversal gods, he wasn't a contender, he was the endgame. Even if some cosmic entity erased him from one universe, Alex would spiral right back through another. With a smirk that could slice through fate itself, he entered the room of requirement, his aura humming with narrative defiance. Now, armed with a spiral of memory chains and fragments of self across time echo, and yet he wasn't just breaking rules. He was unweaving Voldemort's legacy, one Horcrux at a time. Riddle's diary, already unwritten. The others? Mere echoes waiting to collapse. As he strolled through Hogwarts like a living paradox, students froze mid-bite, whispers turning into worship. He wasn't a boy chasing glory, he was myth incarnate, the spiral that devours worlds. Alex didn't want a title, a throne, or applause. He wanted it all. Every thread, every secret, every broken timeline. And with each Horcrux shattered, he edged closer not to domination, but to devouring the very idea of Harry Potter itself. In a world where memories shatter and timelines collapse, Alex Locke journeys through the archive of forgotten realms, a place of lost myths and fading identities. As he battles to retain his fractured existence, Alex forges the spiral of memory chains, creating three avatars: Echo, Now, and Yeto, anchor himself across past, present, and possible futures. Together, they travel through collapsing story verses, reviving forgotten legends and healing broken narratives. But lurking in the shadows is Ananka, the force of closure, demanding Alex prove he still evolves. In a test of being incomplete yet infinite, Alex becomes more than Manny, becomes a myth, a memory that never ends. There's no way entropy could consume him. With cosmic calm and star-born certainty, the fractured voices of the archive fell silent as Echo whispered, "He's not just surviving, he's remembering." The library shimmered, and even the lost legends ceased their weeping. "Exactly," murmured Now, golden threads dancing between vanishing timelines. Even if Ananke herself descended, she'd face not a man but myth. Yet silver gaze pierced futures unchosen. Alex isn't bound by endings. He is the spiral. Across broken realms, fears faded and forgotten names sang again. Miss Harry, her memory still flickering between truth and tale, spoke softly. "I remember. They say I collapsed entropy, but I'm not sure it was me." Alex's voice, no louder than thought, answered, "No, you did. Not through force, but love." A sacrifice cast deeper than time, your mother's memory became your shield. When entropy tried to erase you, her legacy rebounded it into silence. That's how Ananke lost. Tears shimmered in her eyes, reflecting timelines rekindled. In that moment, memory wasn't just what was left, it was what lived. Tears streamed down her face like shattered starlight, refusing to stop, her body trembling in silent chaos until calm finally found her. She bit her lip, eyes wide with revelation, whispering thanks to Alex, but he raised a hand, halting her gratitude. "Not yet," he said, voice heavy with myth. When he fell, the weight of his collapse splintered his soul, and one shard buried itself in you, nesting in the scar etched across your forehead like a forgotten sigil. Gasps echoed. "What? The dark soul inside her?" Ron's voice cracked like thunder, disbelief breaking him apart. The others recoiled, their eyes seeing not a friend, but a vessel of dread. Shadows of mistrust crept in. Alex stood firm, aura steady, memory chains swirling faintly around him. "Don't fear," he said, a calm storm. "I'm here to extract what should never have lingered. Voldemort is nothing. You, Harry, are still you." The story isn't over, it's spiraling into something greater. The crowd froze, jaws dropping as Alex stood tall and unbothered. He just dismissed the most feared name in wizarding history like it was yesterday's news because to him, it was. No hesitation, no drama, just purpose. He raised his wand, drew out the screaming shard of soul from Harry's scar like it was a splinter, then silenced its fury with divine thunder. One flash, one zap, and Voldemort's cursed echo was history. The others staggered from the psychic blast, but Alex, unshaken. "So noisy," he muttered, bored. With a flick, he calmed the chaos and vanished Edenward to his next target. Destination, room of requirement. He visualized the relic, stepped in, and commanded the chaos. The diadem rocketed toward him, only to meet its end in a flash of storm-forged justice. Another Horcrux, erased. Hogwarts couldn't hold him, not with absolute manipulation bending space to his will. Anti-apparition wards? Child's play. The hunt continued beyond these ancient stones, and nothing, not time, not magic, not death could keep up. With a flicker of distorted space, Alex vanished from his spot and materialized right in front of Gringotts Bank. He cast the disillusionment charm, blending into the shadows as he slipped inside undetected. Gringotts, locked down tight with layers of defenses, had counter charms against invisibility, but compared to Alex's magic, child's play. He moved like a whisper through the corridors, reaching the heart of the bank where he muttered, "Accio Hufflepuff's cup." The golden relic soared toward him, but before it could reach, a bolt of lightning struck and disintegrated it in a flash. Another Horcrux down, 5 gone, 2 more to go. With each destroyed Horcrux, the world around him warped, his influence growing until it rivaled the very laws of nature. He knew what was coming, destroying the last 2, would unlock the final stage of his plan to devour this universe. But Alex wasn't fool enough to think the world would let him walk away unchallenged. No, he prepared for the inevitable counterattack. Drawing deeper into his true self, he unlocked chaos power, a force that could bend reality itself. With this power coursing through him, Alex felt unstoppable, like the universe itself was in his grip. A single step, and he vanished, reappearing at a familiar house, the home of Dolores Umbridge. The locket of Slytherin was inside, and without hesitation, Alex pushed open the door. Inside the dim-lit chamber, flames flickered against ancient stone as the woman by the hearth looked up, startled, her eyes locking onto the figure cloaked in myth. "Mr. Alex," she stammered, her voice trembling, "what brings the most feared white wizard of our age to my threshold?" The air grew heavy as Alex stepped forward, voice sharp as shattered glass. "Where is the locket?" "Hand it over." The moment the truth dawned, she moved to flee, but time itself faltered at his will, every spell of escape crumbling into silence. Cornered, she attempted one last lie. Her smile strained and hollow, but the moment for patience had passed. With a flicker of forgotten might, Alex severed her resistance, bending her will to retrieve the cursed relic. The locket shimmered, then unraveled into mythless dust in his palm. He turned, and as his figure vanished, fire consumed the house, rewriting her legacy in ashes. In a blink, he stood beneath the shadows of the Forbidden Forest, where destiny throbbed in the earth. He hadn't missed his mark. The snake had always been here, coiled beneath prophecy's roots. Then came the rustly rhythm of legs, unnatural and fast, echoing through the trees like a whisper from a story long erased. Out of nowhere, Alex found himself surrounded by an army of colossal spiders, each standing taller than 10 meters, their bodies wrapped in a blood-red, liquid-like magical aura. The aura boosted their strength but drove them insane. Despite the overwhelming force of Alex's magic pressing down on them like a mountain, the spiders weren't phased. They lunged at him, unrelenting. With a flick of his wand, Alex unleashed a massive force, sending a shockwave that obliterated everything within a few hundred meters, reducing the spiders to nothing but dust. But just when he thought it was over, something even more terrifying happened. The spider's remains didn't vanish. They coalesced into a single, monstrous spider over 30 meters tall, its body pulsing with chaotic magic. The rules of the world were bending, intervening directly against him. The creature's roar echoed like a dragon's cry, sending waves of primal fear across the land. From Hogwarts to Hogsmeade, the air went still. Everyone could feel a dread so intense it was as if death itself was lurking nearby. In the Forbidden Forest, the colossal red spider stood frozen, caught in a standoff, not attacking, but not retreating either. All eyes turned toward the heart of the chaos, Alex. No one else could have forced such a beast into hesitation, and in that moment, Alex faced the massive spider without an ounce of fear, ready to face whatever came next. With a sharp tap, the ground quaked, and from the folds of magic surged a dragon of pure brilliance, stretching over 100 meters, its glowing form eclipsing the chaos as it loomed before the spider. Wizards and witches soared into the sky, drawn by the clash of titans. This radiant beast wasn't just power, it was Alex incarnate. But as awe turned to curiosity, the crowd questioned the spider's origin. No ordinary spell could summon such monstrous might. Then came the storm dragon and spider collided, space itself distorting under their fury, shockwaves ravaging everything nearby. Alex watched, silent and calculating. Though smaller, the eight-eyed spider's blood-red magic regenerated endlessly, matching the dragon blow for blow until with a savage lunge, it tore the dragon's wing clean off. Amidst the howls and ruin, Alex recognized that dark energy and echo of chaotic power, one that whispered of deeper connections, of bosses faced before in darker corners of magic. The battle wasn't just strength against strength, it was legacy against nightmare. Its body shattered under the relentless barrage of spear-like legs. The magical dragon collapsed, outmatched by the unyielding eight-eyed spider butt only because Alex chose not to interfere. This wasn't defeat, it was data. With each fall, another version rose. Dragon 2.0, then 3.0, then 4.0, each forged stronger, meaner, closer to the edge of perfection. But strength has a ceiling, and that ceiling was Alex, whose true power pulsed beyond multiversal comprehension. This was the endgame Alex versus the world's laws, in a duel of extinction. Either he'd consume the rules and ascend to the cosmic throne, or tear the world asunder to pocket its broken remains. When he poured his infinite energy into the next dragon, reality buckled. Trees, soil, and air atomized. Absorbed into its body as transfiguration magic rebuilt it stronger, taller until it loomed 500 meters high, a mountain with wings. The eight-eyed spider froze. It had nearly killed the last version. This one? It was something else entirely. Its 8 eyes glared in disbelief. Seriously? You can't play fair? The spider, now more than just a mindless creature, realized it stood no chance against the giant looming before it. With a quick decision, it tried to flee. But just as it moved, a massive claw, as if forged from the very mountain itself, cut through the air with a deafening sonic boom. The claw struck the spider's body, smashing it into a scattering of shimmering energy shards that rained down across the ground. Even in this broken state, the spider wasn't finished. The energy squirmed, trying to pull itself back together. But before it could reform fully, the magical dragon opened its vast maw and consumed the blood-red energy in one swift motion. All that remained was silence. With the spider defeated, Alex absorbed a fragment of the world's authority. But it wasn't enough to tip the scales just yet. Without hesitation, he steered the dragon forward towards Nagini, final Horcrux. Destroying her would grant him absolute control over the world's rules, giving him the power to devour everything within the Harry Potter universe. The dragon, colossal in size at over 500 meters long, moved like a force of nature, covering miles in just a few strides, its destination clear the heart of the Forbidden Forest. There, at the center of a vast magical array, coiled atop a blood-red formation, lay Nagini. Her cold, indifferent gaze met Alex's from atop the dragon, a gaze as empty as it was ancient. This was no ordinary snake. Alex didn't flinch. If Nagini broke the rules, so would he. In a flash, he synced with his deepest self, chaos magic erupting like a storm across dimensions. His dragon surged beneath him, swelling to match Nagini's monstrous scale, its very being unraveling and reforming into a thunder dragon, crackling with living lightning. As Nagini spewed crimson fire, the storm dragon screamed back with bolts that split the sky. Their powers collided fire, and thunder ripping the Forbidden Forest to shreds in a single breath. Shockwaves ripped across the land, hammering toward Hogwarts and Hogsmeade like the fists of forgotten gods. Desperate, wizards rallied, their combined magic casting a Protego Maxima Dome just in time to stop annihilation. But with each dragon clash, the shield trembled, the barrier buckled, the earth groaned, hope cracked. Blow after blow, magic flared and faltered. The villagers, trapped in awe and terror, could only watch as centuries of legacy dangled by a thread and then, through the chaos, a voice rose from despair. No, at this rate, we'll all die. Alex didn't dodge, he embraced the cheat. Channeling his true self, he unleashed chaos magic like a cosmic pulse, and the dragon beneath him swelled to match Nagini's monstrous size. But it didn't stop there. Lightning swallowed scale, storm overtook form, and in an instant, it became a thunder dragon pure voltage forged in defiance. Crimson fire met skyborn fury as the two titans clashed, their elemental collision detonating the forbidden forest into mythic ruins. The shockwaves tore reality, shaking Hogwarts and Hogsmeade to their core. Wizards rallied, casting a massive Protego Maxima to hold the line, but each clash cracked the sky wider. Blow after blow, the shield trembled. Despair crept in, voices breaking, hope flickering like candlelight in a storm, and still, the dragons ragged echoes of cataclysm born from betrayal, each strike threatening to erase history itself. We've got to act fast. One villager, face ashen and spirit crushed, whispered, "It's hopeless. Whether it's Alex or whatever monster he's up against, they're both way too strong for us. Our spells would be useless. They'd get torn apart by the magic storm before they even got close." The crowd fell silent, their faces painted with despair. Then, out of nowhere, someone shouted, "Wait, look, they're moving away!" Everyone's eyes snapped to the horizon. The massive figures, as towering as mountains, were locked in a chaotic dance of fire and lightning, soaring higher into the sky with each clash. The battle raged farther and farther from the village. With each powerful impact, the shockwaves weakened until finally, they disappeared into nothing. A wave of relief washed over the villagers as they hugged their loved ones, grateful to have survived. At the same time, young wizards watching from afar were stunned by what they saw. Even those who had seen Alex's powers before couldn't believe their eyes. Could Alex be Merlin reborn? One murmured. How else could he have this kind of power? This isn't wizardry anymore, this is something beyond. No doubt about it, Alex had reached a level where he could defeat any army, survive a nuclear blast, and to regular folks, he was nothing less than a god. So, this is your last resort, huh? The air cracked with tension as the world itself rebelled. Not from outside interference, but from its own collapsing rules. After empowering its chosen vessel to the breaking point, only to watch her fall short, the very framework of reality spiraled into chaos. Rules twisted, balance shattered, Nagini was pushed beyond any known limit, breaking the logic of the storyverse she came from. But the true fight was never about her. The Avatar was merely a proxy. What stood beyond that fragile illusion was Alex's real self-untouched, unbound waiting. And when the world broke first, it gave him permission to break next. With a step that fractured causality, he stepped through the veil, merging with his echo to face the chaos head-on. Now, standing before the warped titan, he grinned, his voice cutting like a blade across fraying dimensions. You're not a god, you're a glitch trying to play one, and now? You've made this far too easy. So, this is your last resort, huh? Alex's voice rang out, sharp as lightning before the storm. What unfolded before him wasn't some magical anomaly, it was the desperate tantrum of the world rules themselves. After juicing Nagini up to max stats and still watching her fall to Alex's avatar, the rules snapped. It broke its own code, punched a hole through the story's fabric, and overloaded Nagini with raw, unstable power. Now, Nagini outclassed the avatar, but she was never the real enemy. Alex's target was always the rule behind the curtain. And for the rule, the true threat wasn't that smirking projection, it was the original Alex waiting patiently outside the system. And when the world rules broke first, it gave Alex his golden ticket to bend the game too. No longer bound, he stepped straight into the heart of the Harry Potter realm, unshackled and burning with cosmic resolve. His avatar dissolved into him like mist into a storm. Facing the bloated monstrosity Nagini had become, he grinned, full of cold fire. In the end, you're nothing but a fledgling rule trying to play God now. Look what you've done. You just made it easy for me to eat your world whole. So, this is your last shot, huh? The chaotic scene before him wasn't just a freak accident, it was the world rules scrambling to hold on to control. After pushing Nagini to its limits, only to watch it fall short against Alex, the world rules found itself cornered and desperate. It snapped, breaking its own laws, and twisted reality to force Nagini's power into overdrive. At this point, Alex's avatar wasn't even a challenge for Nagini, but Nagini was never the true enemy, it was the world rules itself that Alex had been after all along. And as the world rules faltered, it realized too late that its real enemy wasn't the avatar, it was Alex's true form, lurking outside the boundaries of this world. As Alex's avatar grinned, his true self shared the same smile. When the Harry Potter world rule shattered its own limits, it set the stage for Alex to do the same. Now, he could bend the rules too. With a single step, Alex used his control over the world's authority to break through, materializing right in front of the Thunder Dragon. His avatar rejoined his true self, and he locked eyes with the monstrous Nagini. At the end of the day, you're just a childish Rulanothan compared to the OAA, Alex sneered. You've sealed your own fate. He scoffed. If you hadn't torn apart your own system, it would have been a challenge to devour the Harry Potter world. But now, you've made it too easy.